This is a group of senior employees of a famous real estate company who went to the countryside to carry out a shopping center construction project, thinking that this long business trip would help them have a vacation. It's so interesting and memorable. Who would have thought that they'd be lured by a perverted murdered like a duck? Their vacation is still very luxurious, but it's about going to the other world to reunite with their ancestors. Please join me in watching. This is the scariest horror movie of 2023. The group of employees arranged by the company to stay in a 3-star hotel and to welcome guests personally. The chef went into the kitchen to make a few long drinks, but when after preparing the ingredients, he realized that the gas was running out, the chef angrily called out to the kitchen assistant. However, he secretly skipped work to pollinate the girl, so he had to drive alone to change gas, but in the middle of the road, the car encountered a robber and was unable to continue moving. At the hotel, the receptionist announced that the place-wife network was broken, making the blonde director very upset. She immediately sent a young man to speak. My boss went to the equipment room to fix the wife. Thanks to that, the meeting to allocate their plot to sell the land went very smoothly, as long as the customer invested $1 million. The next year, they could resell it. From $3 to $4 million is very normal. So everyone started debating about Duoc platform to post the promotional video on the to best reach users. At this time, Lena discovered the contract. The compensation contract for Farmer Perrenhouse had an error. Someone forged her signature to speed up the land clearance process. This made everyone start to suspect each other while the chef went into the forest to check. Investigating, he discovered a quite dangerous trap made from white wire. While he still didn't understand which crazy person had made this deadly trap, he was suddenly beaten from behind by a stranger and knocked him unconscious. The receptionist at the hotel saw that the chef had not returned for a long time, so she impatiently called and wanted to urge her, but no one answered, so she only had to go to the kitchen to make some quick dishes for everyone to eat, and of course, the meal. This was rated very low. The tourist group. Jonas saw that Lena was still thinking about the person who forged her signature. So he called her outside and reminded her a few words. We are a team, so don't doubt each other. My boss didn't want to hear loud arguments, so he took a can of barley smoothie outside and lay in a hammock while playing the music. But that was also the last time he drank barley smoothie, because a stranger appeared to send the hairy-mouthed young man to the afterlife. He tied the victim to a hammock. Then he used hairy rocks to drown him in the river inside the hotel. Everyone was still unaware of the danger. Danger was approaching. Jonas dressed up as a funny cartoon character to help people relieve tension, but unexpectedly, they did not respond, making him angry. So director Angel had to come and comfort the young man. This is because he is an important person in the project. To help Jonas be happier, she brought out the golden tree and decided to let him be the first to start shoveling the soil. However, on the other side, Lena was still struggling regarding the contract. She felt that it was quite a disadvantage for the farmer's family because the compensation was too cheap. At this time, the colleague also told the female lead another bad news that Mr. Parson had ended his life right away, after they demolished his farm. Although it wasn't fun at all, Lena still had to participate in group activities with other colleagues, making rafts from wooden planks and plastic bottles to climb out, took the ball in the middle of the river and aim at Team 1. In the end, they didn't know that the murderer had stolen Jonas' Hummy hat. He put it on and went to the hotel to destroy the internet system. After, when the receptionist discovered him, he immediately attacked her even though he tried to fight back, but the result was still useless. The receptionist was brutally killed. After finishing his job, he began to handle the body, maybe by hanging the body up like how people slaughter pigs in the forest. Everyone is still happily participating in group activities until the hanging game. Everyone is cheering for Lena and hoping that she can step out of her own comfort zone and be more sociable with the group. Unfortunately, Lena still could not escape the fear and gave up. The female lead ignored Jonas' sarcastic words and ran all the way back to the hotel. That person climbed through the windows to sneak into Young Chow's room and secretly opened his laptop. Sure enough, Lena found Jonas' profiteering behavior and used a USB to copy the evidence. She had to take advantages of every second, because he and the group were on their way back to the hotel. But when they arrived at the meeting's point, the tour guide discovered that everyone's backpacks containing belongings and phones were gone and flying. She told everyone to come with her, ran to find Jonas, angry at losing the stuffed animal head, so she left the room. Luckily, Lena had already copied the documents. She couldn't get out of the room in time to copy the evidence. She had to take advantages of every second, because he and the group were on their way back to the hotel. But when they arrived at the meeting's point, the tour guide discovered that everyone's backpacks containing belongings and phones were gone and flying. She told everyone to come with her, ran to find Jonas, angry at losing the stuffed animal head, so she left the room. Luckily, Lena had already copied the documents. She couldn't get out of the room in time The tour guide was so frightened that he quickly ran away as if nothing had happened. Before long, the murderer appeared and chose her as the next unfortunate victim. The girl tried to counterattack and regain her life, but it seemed she couldn't argue with fate. As a result, the tour guide was quickly killed. The murderer sent him to heaven with 2 fatal blows outside. Lena called the 2 colleagues she trusted the most to her room and showed them the documents she had just stolen. It was clear that Jonas had been bribed. He had faked it, forged the female lead signature, and secretly discovered their company project. After everything broke out, this bastard would easily join a rival company immediately. Lena and 2 friends went to Jonas to question him. However, Young Chow asked the female lead to go into the room to talk privately with him. As soon as he got there, he immediately stripped and wanted to offer a cucumber stomach for her to use temporarily, but Hoa overestimated himself. Then Lena would rather let the oven build a spider web than eat a tiny cucumber like that. When he saw that he couldn't buy a dozen of the heroin, he immediately turned to use cunning to justify himself. But Lena pulled out the USB that had the container documents copied from Jonas' computer, causing him to just up. She threatened and gave the traitor 2 choices. One was to confess everything and give the forest this project back. The other was that she would report it to the police and have his stomach hanged in prison for life. On the other side, Kai was still relaxing in the swimming pool and moving to the music when the murderer appeared with a cutting machine and he made a few basic cuts that killed him. Kai was appearing right at Ajit Place nearby. Seeing this, she quickly abandoned her belongings and ran for her life. On the other hand, the director ran to find the receptionist and discovered a murder. Scene full of horror, Angel ran away fear and bumped into the murderer, thinking that it was Jonas. She was about to tell everything, but unexpectedly the murderer chained her neck with a wary and hung her on a flagpole until she died. Seeing this scene, everyone immediately panicked and ran away. Lena and Jonas ran away, moved in the same directions into the forest to appease Nan. The unfortunate traitor was caught in the murderer wire trap. Seeing this, Lena immediately ran to help him escape. They ran to the riverbank and used the raft to climb out the farthest. Maybe the murderer could only look at the 2 of them helplessly, but in the middle of the Jonas River, he suddenly forced the female lead to give the USB and then raised his foot and kicked her straight into the water. He then sat alone on the raft. Just like that, she left. Fortunately, Lena knew how to swim, so she was able to keep her life. She quickly ran into forest, but she stumbled and fell into the murderer trap. Inside, there was also the body of the bad chef. The remaining people at the hotel locked the door and hid in the room, trembling like a leaf. Their phone and internet had all been destroyed by the murderer, so they had no choice but to stay in one place and pray that everyone would be caught. At first, he made himself a few weapons to defend himself. Then Annette suddenly decided to separate the group to do something while in the forest. The murderer was still searching for Lena everywhere. The female lead hid on a rock and tried to keep quiet. He couldn't breathe and didn't dare make a sound. At that moment, Amy took the lamp and ran to find Lena. His call attracted the murderer's attention, causing him to leave. Lena quickly ran to cover Amy a mouth and pulled him in safe place. On the other side, Nydia was hiding in the room looking for things when the murderer reached through the windows, grabbing her hair. She quickly used scissors to cut off her hair, but the murderer entered through the main door at the light. Suddenly it turned off. Nydia stabbed him once and then Quick Chan ran outside. The angry murderer exploded the car, which was the only means of escape for the group. People in the house had a noise outside the back door, immediately turned around in fear. It turned out that it was just Amy and Lena. The murderer was injured, so he gave first aid to himself, continuing the pursuit on this side. Annette was scared and walked step by step towards Kai's body. Jonas suddenly rushed to cover her mouth and took her back to his room. The traitor head was not lightly injured. He struggled for a while, but still could not help himself. Seeing that, kind Annette went to help Jonas, stitching the wound alive on the spot. Just looking at it makes me feel like used up all my strength. Annette guessing that the murderer is the hairy-mouthed guy who was killed at the beginning of the movie because he's quite mysterious and hasn't returned anywhere until now. Jonas, she wanted to sit here and wait for death, so she rushed out to find a getaway car. Annette followed behind, but was abandoned by the traitor. Though the murderer was her colleagues, so she tried to convince him to give up his executioner. But after taking off his hat, Annette realized she had made a move straight into the ground, so she was logged out of the earth with a sickle stuck in her head by the murderer while Jonas rushed like crazy on the road but unfortunately fell into a trap set by the murderer, causing him to fall straight into the river at the hotel. At this time, everyone knew the murderer identity was the son of Passan, the farmer who committed suicide because being pressured, he clearly killed them to average his father. If he remained here, it would certainly be difficult to escape the hands of death, so everyone decided to flee that night even though they had made many weapons, but they were all scared and trembling when the murderer appeared. They didn't know how to regroup and fight. They ran away. The unlucky girl in red fell behind. However, she still fought fiercely. Go and Kwang. At this time, Eva and her husband-in-law chose to run back to the hotel and hide under the table, while Amia and Lena ran to the cable car. Although she was very scared, with the encouragement of her four-eyed brother, she was strong, daring to swing to the other side. Unexpectedly, at the end of the road, the murderer had already set a sharp looking trap in advance, forcing Amy to choose to sacrifice herself to protect Lena. The next morning, the murderer carried the chainsaw back to the hotel. Man-in-law bravely fought with him, but Eva ran away and dropped her pants, leaving him alone to confront the murderer. At this time, the man-in-law was being brutally beaten by him. Eva felt a bit guilty, so she returned, with the death scythe in her hand, screaming loudly, swinging the scythe and slashing repeatedly, but lucky. The murderer was scared away by her aura. Eva saw this and quickly locked the door and used a table to block him. Strawberry told Eva that we have to fight if we want to keep our life. The two of them quickly took the golden tree and began searching for the murderer. They carefully opened each door one by one but couldn't find it. He was nowhere at that moment when the murderer suddenly appeared from behind and used a rope around Eva's neck to pull him away. She grabbed a bottle of wine and hit him in the face, then used all her strength to push them both out the windows. But at that opportunities, Eva jumped up and ran away, but the murderer still insisted on pursuing her until he saw her fall. He immediately used an electric drill to finish her off. Just in time, the husbands-in-law appeared and used a torch to burn her, so the murderer had to put his face in the countryside's river to put out the fire. Then he turned around and continued to attack the poor couple. Fortunately, the girl in red was able to use the haul to slash her in time. His head was on this side. Lena found the phone box and called the police to come save her. When she saw them passing by, Lena tried calling, but to no avail. At that moment, Jonas suddenly rushed in and knocked the female lead down. The two countries competed to exchange martial arts skills to know the traitor head. Injured, Lena pulled it away, causing Jonas to die immediately. After that, the female lead, Tick, went to everyone's place and was helped by the police, save the wound. So the horrifying massacre has ended. Perhaps no one want to become a murderer except the perverts who are forced in a dead end, which leads to such cruel actions. But we can't use the excuse of being forced to kill innocent people, so let live well and help each other so we don't have to see tragic endings. This is the end of the movie. Hello and see you soon. The whole